In this update, we're tracking a huge storm system over the next couple of days, and then a winter battle zone will be developing as we head into February. So let's take a look at the setup going forward. We've been talking about this upper level low feature that's come off the coast of California. Now it's into the Four Corners regions, and it's close enough now where it's providing the lift mechanism to produce widespread showers and thunderstorms over areas of Texas into portions of Oklahoma into Arkansas. In fact, they've got, a flood watch in place for portions in Texas, Arkansas, all the way up into western areas of Tennessee. As spokes of energy gets closer, especially into tonight, we could be looking at some training rains and some heavier rainfall, and could in fact see some flood warnings overnight. Some marginally induced storms there in southwest areas of the Metroplex of Dallas. But as this moves across Texas, going into the overnight time frame, I think the rush hour traffic is going to be inundated with very heavy rainfall. And that's just going to continue into East Texas going into the day on Thursday, where things get a little bit more bumpier down there in Southeast Texas, as well as into Louisiana. Some more intense supercell thunderstorms would likely unfold, and even some tornadic activity. That includes areas of Arkansas, and that shifts into the Tennessee Valley, and then lighter amounts as you swing up into portions of the Northeast. But look what happens with that little blue line going into, as we flip the calendar in February. That is your warmer air coming in from the south, as most of the Arctic air is bundled back up into Canada, into Alaska. And then we're going to have a little bit more of a zonal flow taking shape in the beginning stages of a winter battle zone. So we're going to be opening up the Pacific Ocean. In fact, areas of the Pacific Northwest, Washington and Oregon, portions of Northern California is just going to be inundated with daily heavy rainfall, and then snow into the higher elevations, at least through the first couple of days of the month of February, as it's going to be very active again into the Pacific Northwest. So we'll break it down over the next 48 hours in some of the high resolution guidance. Here is your upper level low feature that is producing some snows into the higher elevations. In fact, they've already had almost a foot of snow in areas of northern portions of New Mexico and portions of Colorado. But there's the sporadic showers and thunderstorms that's inundated over Texas this afternoon, on and off activity in areas of Oklahoma. And there's those snow squalls that went through the Northeast, and the leftover effects with some isolated snow showers within this region of Pennsylvania and back into New York, especially like Vermont and New Hampshire, and heading into Maine. But as we move the needle and going into today, and I think it really amplifies, especially as we get into tonight, as we have that system get a little bit closer, and notice this training aspect with these supercell thunderstorms. I think that's when they start to turn marginally induced severe as a warm front lifts up from the south to the north. That's when I think we'll start to see the heaviest activity unfold there into North Texas, back into Central Texas, getting into southeastern Oklahoma. That's where they have the flood watch in beginning effect as well. And that moves into Arkansas into the overnight hours, as well as into Missouri. But it just continues into the morning rush hour. So definitely expect a wet commute, expect some delays there into the Dallas-Fort Worth area with the training supercell thunderstorms. We could be looking at 2-4 inches, even some isolated spots. 5-6 inches is definitely not out of the question, with some very heavy rainfall into the overnight, into the morning hours. And you can definitely see going into Thursday, that's when I think that's going to be shifting into southeast Texas, a little bit more isolated, so you have a little bit more instability. They do in fact have a slight risk for severe storms down here in southeast Texas, as well as into Louisiana. That just swings into a heavier rainfall, getting into Arkansas, back into Missouri, southern Illinois, especially western areas of Kentucky, as well as into areas of Tennessee. And that just continues to unfold further, further off to the east, back into West Virginia, heading into the evening time frame of Thursday, going into Friday morning. So there is your severe storms heading into Thursday morning, Thursday afternoon down there in southeast Texas. They do have a 5% tornado probability of some of these supercells likely turning tornadic. They are going to be a little bit more isolated. You do have a little bit more instability, higher dew points down there. So yes, unfortunately, it does makes sense that you could see some severe storms that could turn tornadic. And remember, this is the same area that got crushed with the heavy snow just like a week ago. So now we're talking about severe storms and even possible tornadic activity as the atmosphere has done a complete 360. I mean, there were lows like 4 degrees down there in Lafayette. Now we're talking about severe storms and very humid conditions. That's how much the atmosphere has changed over the last week. But as we head into Friday, you can definitely see that upper level low will be traversing across Illinois. I don't think these are severe now. These are just marginally induced thunderstorms with some isolated wind gusts of 40, 50 mile per hour as this moves across into Kentucky, back into Ohio, as well as into portions of Pennsylvania as we keep continuing to move up into the Northeast. Some of this could actually change over to snow once it gets cold enough and gets high enough up there. We're talking some of the higher elevations, upstate New York, getting in Vermont, New Hampshire, back into Massachusetts. Definitely not out of the question, especially there into Maine. But it'll just be all rain for you guys into the Carolinas headed into Friday night, going into Saturday morning. But look what happens, right? It's been dry out there in the Pacific Northwest, and that comes back with a vengeance as more of a zonal flow and opens up the Pacific Ocean for you guys up there into the Pacific Northwest. So now the rains come back with a vengeance, as well as into Washington and Oregon and Northern California. Some of the higher elevations, we'll be starting to see the snow flying literally on a daily basis as that kind of just train system after system continues to pummel that area through the first couple of days of February. And that takes shape as our more of a zonal flow and our more of our battle zone starting to take shape as we have essentially kind of spring to the south and winter to the north, as our conveyor belt of moisture will spread showers and thunderstorms and then the snow into the interior regions as it transfers into some of that colder air, especially during that first week of February. So the breakdown for the precipitation front over the next 7 days kind of looks like this. You've got these supercell thunderstorms are going to be training in overnight. So yes, we're all these areas into red, easily 2 to 4 inches. There's going to be some isolated totals. This is exactly where they have the flood watch in place. Flood warnings overnight, flood warnings into tomorrow morning for the rush hour commute. And then that transfers into Arkansas, back into western areas of Tennessee, into Kentucky. Lighter amounts in the blue, you're talking less than an inch over the next 7 days. Once you go up into Ohio, back into Pennsylvania, even lighter amounts as you swing further south into the southeast. But notice up here in the Pacific Northwest, this is just over like a 5-day front, right? This is one from the 1st to the 5th time frame. Yes, you just get crushed with heavy rainfall almost on a daily basis. Is going to be adding up some to pretty significant totals, and that is some very heavy snow that's going to be breaking out into California up there into the higher elevations, and even some heavier snows into Idaho. So if we break it down on the 500 millibar front, you can actually kind of see this better. Right now, there's your upper level low. That's your surface low forming to the south of Texas there. And as we move through the needle, notice Alaska, right? I mean, they get brutal cold. It was very cold in the lower 48 for a couple of weeks. Now that is completely flipped, and it's basically back up into Canada and it's back up into Alaska. So now you're talking lows tomorrow. You're talking almost 40 below zero in portions of Alaska, while much of the warmer anomalies come back for the lower 48. So right now we're tracking this system down here into the areas of Texas, into the southern plains. But notice what happens as that more of the zonal flow takes shape. There's the cold air. It just gets trapped over the top. Instead of get trapped underneath, it gets trapped over the top, and you got the warmer air underneath. That's the beginning stages of the zonal flow starting to take shape. But it really doesn't take long, because going into that second, third day, right after Groundhog Day, notice Alaska. That's the ridge building back in. So yes, you do turn brutal cold, but it's likely not going to last very long. As the ridge comes back into play, pushes back up into Alaska, that's going to set up the trough underneath, and that's going to start the beginning stages of the battle zone that will be taking shape as the Arctic air presses southbound. And then there's that fight going on with the south wind and the warmer anomalies to the south. So that's why we're going to have a battle zone take shape And it's going to take a little bit of time, but I think it's eventually going to eat away a lot of that warmer anomalies for the lower 48 as this continues to spin. It continues to pulse further south, especially the deeper we get into that first week of February. And that zonal flow will be pressing further south as well, especially as we get to the 7th, say the 8th time frame keeps eating away further south as that colder anomalies will keep pressing further and further south as we go. You can see a little bit better on the temperature front, right? So here's where we are right now. You got the warmer anomalies coming in. That's evident for the south wind. That's why we're producing some showers and thunderstorms. That's why we have the capability of some severe storms as well. Cold air's over the top. Cold air's in Alaska, right? So as we move the needle, we continue to show that kind of that zonal flow taking shape and the battle zone starting to take shape up over the top in much of southern portions of Canada as it starts entering the lower 48 with some of these temperatures into Montana heading into possibly Monday could be going below zero again by then as the cold air continues to press. And as it does, it's eventually going to win out, right? It's eventually going to start eating away some of that ridging aspect further south and the warmer anomalies as the cold air continues to press, and that battle zone will start to, that's the fight we're talking about. That's the fight. It's going to go back and forth. And then as that cold air continues to press, and eventually it keeps pressing over the south, and eventually it does, I think, in fact, win out and pushes the warmer anomalies out and pushes the colder areas and a more predominant colder flow, especially as we enter that second week of February with much colder anomalies. And obviously that pulls the snow line further south right now. So here's your probabilities on some snow over the next week or two and the higher chances. Of course, all these areas in red, pretty much 100% probability you're going to get at least 1 inch of snow. But as the cold air continues to press and as more data continues to come in, as we get into the first and second week of February, I think some of this is going to be shifting a little bit further south as more of the cold air will start to win out over the warmer anomalies that will be taking over the next week. So guys, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely hit the subscribe button, and catch my next update. Why I protect you before and after the storm.